started to have respect to everyone's time because I know how busy everyone is. But hi, I'm Erin Berg. I'm the new principal of King. I've had an opportunity to speak with many of you, and hopefully over the course of this year, I'll have more opportunities to speak with you and get to know you. So I really wanted to thank everyone for having so much just patience and kindness with me over the course of my first about month here. I'm very thrilled to be here, and I hope I can continue to work with you to build high expectations for our students and really champion King. That's what I want to do. So I really thank you for having the patience with me while I get to know my staff and get to know my students, and I'm really looking forward to a great year. So I wanted to introduce Antonio Lopez, who's my regional administrator, and have him take over for here, and then we'll go from there. So thank you so much, you guys, for being here.
All right. Thank you, Erin. Well, welcome. Thank you for being with us. And, my name is Antonio Lopez. I'm the regional administrator. I have two areas that I supervise. Franklin, I've been supervising Franklin for 3 years, and this will be the second year that I'm supervising Jefferson. So thank you for being here. So let me introduce the people that are here with us. Let me start with Pat Baker. Let me start with Lisa Collins. Erin Barnett. There she is. And where is Joe Sachs? Where is Joe? There she is. Please go down that way. And I'm sorry, so. All right. So thank you. And, oh, that's what I was going to ask. So we have some teachers over here. Can you raise your hand so that way people know? So thank you. I know it's been we really appreciate you being here. We also have the Oregonian here. So just for you to know that that is here. And also, Erin, are you here representing somebody or what's the role?
I have a child in the system.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Myself, I guess.
All right. Yeah. All right. So welcome everyone. So what we want to start with, instead of us talking to you, we want to know what questions do you have for us. In terms of this meeting is about what you've been seeing and hearing about some concerns about the data. So we wanna tell you what we know, and we wanna be able to answer the questions. So if it is okay with you, can we start with the questions? That way we can tailor the answers to your needs instead of you just listening to us and you leaving here this meeting and like, well, you know what? I didn't get my question answered. Would that be okay for everyone? Yeah, you can just give me with your head and. All right, so I'm gonna have Erin over here writing the questions that you have, and then we can start addressing them. Anybody? Any questions? Let's start with you.
What do these test scores mean as far as the achievement of our students and the skill gap that is occurring with the test scores that you fill up?
Y dígame si vamos muy recio. Si la traducción dice. Señora.
Yo tengo una pregunta. ¿Por qué esperaron tanto tiempo para dar este comunicado?
The question is why we waited this long to communicate.
When you do see scores, let's just say, for instance, this low, is there some sort of like standard action plan that PPS has, or is it according to school, or according to how many meetings like this you have, or questions that need to be answered.
Yes, ma'am?
When you look at these test scores, excuse me, are you looking at each year the third grade performed this way and one each year, or are you going this group of this students in third grade perform this way they perform in third grade this way, third, fourth, fifth, or just straight across third grade?
Yes, sir?
So we know the scores drop from one year to the next, and before, when they were higher, they were the highest in the cluster, and now they're the lowest in the cluster. So do we know that the testing procedures are consistent across the cluster or the district?
Okay. Yes, ma'am?
Some of the scores reported were in the single digits, like 7.4% of the calculators and the reading benchmarks. What is being done to make sure that those kids don't have a skill gap that will follow them and cause them to drop out of high school?
Yes, sir?
I would like to know who was in charge of the investigation? Who originally led the investigation, who approved the results? Is that what I mean?
Okay. Yes, sir?
Were the test results and the turnaround grant related at all in terms of still receiving the money if scores didn't increase?
Yeah, the C grant, right? The school improvement grant.
Correct, yeah. That was a 3-year thing, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Any years this year. Okay. Any other questions? Yes, sir?
I'd like to know if the students can have questions read to them and encouragement as a standard practice, because I think it's necessary for our students to have that support in getting the knowledge out of their heads.
Señora?
Yo, como todos saben, estamos preocupados y queremos saber si se va a dar algún resultado y si lo que nos dice que es que quien será una de las escuelas que tienen la unión de los niños y después por la otra certificación. Y ayer precisamente le volvieron a dar las noticias y dijeron que algunos niños no habían emitido los exámenes. Que habían demolido los exámenes. Y yo sé que ahorita imagino que hay una investigación para que la cosa nos diga qué va a pasar exactamente con la calificación y cuáles son los niños que deben estar.
So the question is that they've been seeing in the news that drop in the scores, and what they want to know is what we want to do about it. In the news they say that some teachers were giving the answers. ¿Que algunos maestros le dieron las respuestas?
Dice que dijeron que algunos maestros mintieron.
The basic the news say that some teachers lie. En esto fue las noticias, en la televisión.
En las noticias del noroeste.
This was in television. En español, the Spanish television station. Yes.
Are we, as you're explaining this to us, are we able to ask questions to clarify, or is this the only time that we get to?
No, you can ask questions to clarify.
Okay.
When we explain it. Right. Okay, señora.
¿Por qué el distrito no puso más atención a lo que se dice de que los maestros manipularon las vueltas de calificación?
Why the district didn't pay more attention when the news say that the teachers manipulated the data.
Yeah.
¿Qué va a pasar con las calificaciones que ya están asignadas? Ahora que se ha visto o que se está dando la noticia que no es real, que los maestros ayudaron a manipular estas evaluaciones. ¿Qué va a pasar ahora?
What happened to the grades when the media is saying that teachers manipulated the data?
So will the old grades still stand?
With
Will
the
results
grades,
still
with
stand?
the grades then or re-examine the grades?
Porque yo tengo un comentario acerca de uno de mis hijos que dice, si yo me esforcé para presentar un examen y los maestros nunca nos dieron respuestas ni tampoco ideas, entonces ¿qué va a pasar con mi calificación? Que yo me gané
If I work very hard to get a grade and the teachers with manipulated the data, then what is going to happen? I work very hard y quiere mantener su grado, que se le dio, ¿verdad? Su calificación.
Sí, y yo creo que todos los niños.
And I want to give the grade that I got.
Ya con todo esto, ya algunos niños yo siento que ya están preocupándose sobre este criterio, que no es un juego.
Because this is affecting kids and this is not a game.
Just to clarify, the grade, sheet is test score, right?
Cuando dice grado, ¿quieres grado? ¿Es el grado que recibieron al final del año o es el resultado que adquirieron en el examen?
El resultado que se adquiere, o sea, a nosotros nos están dando en la boleta de calificaciones cuánto puntaje tienes, cuál fue tu calificación, ¿no es cierto?
Ese es su grado.
Ajá, ese es su grado.
Sí.
Entonces, al tiempo que se está diciendo que se manipularon los exámenes, que los maestros ayudaron a que pasaran el examen, no nos han especificado qué examen. No se ha especificado exactamente cuáles son los exámenes, aquí mismo lo está volviendo a repetir, que una antigua empleada.
So what it hasn't been clear when it said the test, it hasn't been clear what test.
Brings me to the final question that isn't, all of these questions seem to be about the welfare of children, and I understand that's first and foremost as a concern, but as a parent, I know that I have been having a crisis of confidence in the school, and I know that at least a few other parents have had that same crisis.
Yeah.
Part of my crisis of confidence is the lack of data, even though these scores were published in the Oregonian. Even though these scores are available at the Oregon Live website, and I encourage these parents who want to when they are to go there and inform themselves. There's been a lack of information on the part of the district to give that to parents. I realize those scores are embargoed, but it's no secret. It only seems as if you're trying to keep it secret from us by not getting into us in this meeting. Also by only allotting us 1 hour to talk about it. I realize we are not a huge group of parents. Maybe there are some parents who are blithely unaware.
We can come for another hour, we can come for another meeting.
I think that would be a wonderful start because it takes a lot of people to make a school work, and parents are a piece of it. And I know many parents feel highly disrespected by this whole process, which has had little to no information given to us, and the information has been put forth in a way that is, quite honestly, it seems deceptive.
I want to announce that. I agree, because I feel like there was a major disregard for parents. Our kids are here, and many of us have been well invested, not only monetarily, but with tithing of our time. And I feel like not only has the district and the school not been good stewards of that, but to disregard us and not inform us of this when you all were aware, clearly at some point, clearly before the Oregonian started all the articles. It's a shame that we were made aware of this by the media first. That's totally disrespectful.
Your question is kind of the same one that she
Yeah,
asked,
I
right?
just want to echo that, and I just want to also make clear that I've spoken to multiple parents, as usual, because many of us are familiar faces. And I don't want the representation in this room tonight or the low attendance. I mean, it's a good turnout, but a lot of
That's a good
teachers,
turnout.
there's a lot of teachers there more than parents, I think, if I'm right, but I don't want that to be mistaken as parents don't care or they're not concerned, because they are. Many parents are intimidated by the information, they have no trust in the district and with the administration, so they don't know necessarily what questions to ask, they don't know what this all really means, and they don't have trust in you all. So they're leaving it up to me and restaurant off to be here, but I don't want you guys to feel like.
We're not
I'm just
doing
making that clear, because oftentimes in the past, there's always a statement of, oh, well, you're the only parent that showed concern, or it's always just your group, or it's always just your faces. That's not true.
Even if it's one parent, I'm sorry.
I hope so.
Even if it's one parent, we'll take it seriously. Yes, sure.
What really struck me is when we heard about this, we heard the district had responded with investigations of staff after the scores was produced. I want to know what kind of additional supports have been given to the students who have those scores, and what are we doing actively to recoup the lost years? So what's being done, what additional resources are available, tutoring, et cetera, aside from the investigation or whatever's happened to that, but what is being done actively now to bring them back to where they need to be?
And also kind of to go along with that, you know, were there any indicators or sort of flags saying that this could potentially be, you know, where kids are at this year versus waiting until the test happens and then going to school? And it seems like, you know, the rapport with kids, you know, takes a long time to build up in a classroom. And if that's not sort of being Hawkeye, I mean, we're sort of depending, I guess, on the school system. We don't Hawkeye that, so it's just curious why it would come out of the blue.
So, one more question, and then we'll start answering this question, because I want to go over this, because this will, hopefully will clarify a lot, and then we go to other questions that this is not addressed. You know?
La primera.
That's good. So,
Son un poco cuentos.
sí, sí,
Yo sé
sí.
que me dijo mucho tiempo que
Sí.
eres la persona guía, porque eres la persona que está responsable de esta área. ¿Por qué el año pasado se empezó lo de clusters? El cluster Jefferson, de balance,
De balance.
de balance de institución, y estaba contemplado entre ellos 15. Ahora, ¿por qué estamos ya en septiembre y ahora están otra vez 15? O sea, quiero que se aclare ya esto realmente, porque tú estás diciendo que vas a tomar en cuenta las opiniones más de los padres que de los maestros. ¿Sabes por qué no estamos discutiendo ahorita?
No, yo no digo que va a ser más de los padres que los maestros, no he dicho ahorita. En esta, no he dicho ahorita.
Yo eso fue lo que más me ha entendido. Porque ahorita muchos padres te aseguro que no llegaron, porque eso es lo que me comentan, bueno, que nos digan, o van a cerrar la escuela, o nos van a asignar otra para nuestros hijos, o por qué siempre aquí, por qué siempre aquí.
Her question is like, last year we had the Jefferson enrollment balancing, and I think King. Why King again? Why is it they don't give us a break? And if they're gonna close the school, then let us know. But we're tired of King being again the focus of another thing. So I'm going to start first. Joe works with the department that looks at assessment. For him to explain what the OAKS assessment is and what it does, so that way when we talk about the data that came out, you have understanding what assessment we're talking about. Does that make sense? So that way you know what data we're talking about.
OAKS, the acronym stands for Oregon Assessment of Knowledge and Skills, and it's a multiple choice test that is intended to be a summative test. And summative tests are tests that are given at the end of an instructional period. So normally, a summative test that covers the entire year of instruction would be given toward the end of the school year.
Joe, yes, just want to check.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You going too fast?
No.
You're doing something.
Thank you. Thank you for reminding me. Because of some of the transitions in Oregon, and Portland, when we used to do paper pencil tests, to moving it to online over the years, we have had a system in Oregon where there are 3 attempts available for students during the school year. And that testing window has been typically from about mid-October, early November through the end of May. And as you can see, that's not at the end of the school year, that's the entire school year. That's not best practice for a summative assessment. So when we give that assessment to kids earlier in the school year, it's a little unclear what we're actually testing. Are we testing something that they learned in instruction? Are we testing something they already knew? So OAKS is a summative, it's supposed to be a summative test given toward the end of instruction. It's not intended as a summative test, it's not intended to target specific learning needs that students have. It's really intended to say, overall, how did your student perform this year in reading or this year in math? In addition, and more importantly, summative assessments are used for accountability reasons. They're used to monitor how the entire school did, how a classroom did, how a school district did. We have different kinds of assessments that are used better for informing instruction, deciding what kinds of areas students are struggling in, where their strengths are, what kinds of additional supports they may need for instruction. In Portland, we don't have a real great core of those assessments. Part of that is because we are assessment shy. We don't want to spend all of our instruction time testing kids. And so we do have some of those. You're probably familiar with DIBELS and Easy CBM. Those are more formative and interim assessments that help inform what kind of learning students need. So, Antonio, I don't know if I'm getting clear on where you want to go, but OAKS is, what you're seeing in the newspaper is the summative assessment. It's kind of the culmination of student learning in the aggregate at the end of the school year. And it's one data point. It's not intended ever to be reflective of student learning in the whole. It's supposed to be used in conjunction with other information that teachers have about student learning, other information that teachers have about end-of-unit assessments, or however they measure that learning with students during the year.
So is this test for the teachers or students?
The students take the test. I'm not sure if that's your question. Or who are the results intended
who are
for?
the results intended for? Yeah.
They're intended for everyone from the student all the way up to the state level. Summative assessments generally are better reflective of a group of learning, but they do summarize an individual student learning. OAKS assessments are about 50 items long. They're about 50 multiple choice items for reading and for math. They cover different areas of instruction. For example, math will cover geometry, it'll cover calculation and estimation, it'll cover measurement. But because there's only 50 items to assess all of that, each of those areas only has a few items tied to it. And to be able to say how much a student learned during a year in calculations just based on 5 items isn't really a very reliable measure. And so while we have results available at that goal level, that's not particularly useful for students. The overall score, though, is a sum of all of those areas and is intended for the student to be a reflection of have you mastered the content in 3rd grade mathematics, 4th grade reading this year. So in that regard, it's helpful for the student. Have you mastered that minimum knowledge or not? From a school, a teacher level, or a school level, or a district level, what the results tell you is, as a whole, are we on track with our instruction? And to get to your question earlier about grade levels, we are able to report grade to grade. So it's a different group of 3rd graders this year from last year. but we're also able to track students over time. So, and there's some utility with the assessment for doing that for a school or for a teacher. How have my students grown over time in King School, for example?
Sorry, real quick. I'm new to the, I'm a kindergartner, but I'm new to it all. Are the parents notified of their child and how they do on the testing, or is that just for the state?
Yeah, we, teachers have, the test proctors have that score information available right when testing ends. The state creates a report that we send home in the mail over the summer to parents, just showing how the students did during the school year. We only mail that home once a year, and usually it's late July, early August. And the Oaks assessment, by the way, is 3rd through 8th grade and high school. So K through 2nd graders aren't tested on this particular assessment. And there was a question.
So for all schools, not just King, are they all tested at the same point in the year? Or is it just King that's tested in October?
That's a great question. And let me know when you want me to stop. I don't want to take all the time because I know there's other questions. But King, best practice suggests that assessments be given, the summative of assessment be given at the end of the year. In Portland, well, in Oregon, the state removed the 3rd attempt in last year, which explains part of the reason we see a drop in scores. Not just in King, but the whole state saw a drop in reading and math scores. We've removed that 3rd attempt where teachers may have decided, oh, you're really close to meeting, let's try again, and we get some kids over that hurdle. That's not best practice for a summative test. The purpose of a summative test is snapshot at the end of instruction, how did you do? So we're moving away from that all throughout the year practice. The state has narrowed to 2 attempts. In Portland last year, we decided for students who met on their first attempt, they're done. They don't get a second try, to be more consistent with best practice. And I don't want to get into the next assessment, but next year we'll have a new assessment besides Oaks, and that one will only have 1 chance at the end of the year as a best practice.
So did all the schools take their test at the same time? Or were
it's a window. They can do it.
But I mean,
they schedule it during
I'm not asking like the October 12th. I'm not asking that, but I'm asking, did all the schools take it in October, or did some take them in October, some in December, some in March?
Yes.
So the people in October, at the beginning of the year, some of them tested differently were those different than those who tested in, say, March? I mean, because it's a summit and it's supposed to be at the end of the year.
Right.
So the people in March had, say it was March, I don't know for sure, but they would have more time learning those skills.
Correct.
As those in October.
And we know from looking at data in Portland that kids do better. Optimally, around March or April is the best time to test students. Not early in the year for obvious reasons.
So why are we testing?
I'm trying to go in order of where I saw hands.
Okay, so do you want to know more about the test, or you want me to go and try to answer these questions? Because we can spend a lot of time. This is, which way do you want? Well, the thing is that...
5 more minutes for me, and
okay.
5 more minutes for Joe.
I was going to say, it might be a good idea to invite Joe back to a parent meeting another time to just talk about testing, because it does take more than 5 or 10 minutes, and then you get into some of this other topics.
Well, let's just give it like 5 minutes and then we go on that.
Go here, and then here, and I saw it.
So you said so the teachers would know these scores right away. So my question would be, at what point would our staff have known that we weren't doing well? Like Galen, I think, said this shouldn't have been a surprise, so then why was it? And then as a parent, my concern would go back to why during the time clearly that administrators here knew that we weren't testing well, why were we still being pushed to propaganda that we're doing well? And I only ask that because a lot of us have gone out to the community trying to push these test scores based off of information we were given to go and push to try to bring people to King School to enroll.
Sure.
So basically we push false information knowing, well, the staff would have known that,
Well, so two responses to that. One is during the year, the only way that teachers would know that is if they are monitoring their students and aggregating the data and tracking it. And even then you don't know, because if you teach a kid the second time, those results can change quite a bit by the time everybody's done testing. Our department sends out a report early August, late July, early August. And that's really the first time that the school has a summative look at the testing. And that's because we have to wait until the state has all the data. We've had a chance to clean it up, make corrections to student IDs or to whatever needs to be corrected in the data so that we're pretty confident in it. And then we can send that report out. So the first time that the principals would have seen it would have been probably end of July, early August. Okay? That's the first time. Yes.
So this is a stat that I've heard just going around this school, that a lot of students in poverty from different cultures tend to start 1 to 2 years behind other students in pre-K. So if you're a student who's a year behind, and you take a 3rd grade assessment, and you're at 2nd grade level, would you expect that student to fail, completely fail that assessment? And my other question is, what is the impact of that? You see patterns such as that, and I know you do a lot of analysis. Is that a pattern that's seen, and what do schools do?
So one more comment just about Oaks as a summative assessment. Oaks assesses only within the grade level. So if a student takes a 3rd grade test, they are being tested on only instruction that's happening in the 3rd grade. They're not being tested on 4th grade, 2nd grade. So if your student exceeds in 3rd grade, all that means is they've exceeded the content for 3rd grade. It doesn't mean anything about their learning compared to a 4th grader or their learning compared to a 2nd grader. So that's important to keep in mind. That doesn't exactly answer your question, but it's related, and I wanted to get that out there. And your question was more.
What's the impact on average test score of a student who completely fails because of being a 1 grade level behind, as we know is the case, on the overall score? I know if you're taking a class, you get 3 A's, you get an F in the term. That'll go from an A average to a C average. So I know your statistics and numbers guys, so can you explain how?
So the impact of a test score on a student,
on the group.
On the group, a single test score on the group, depends on how low it is. But most of what we report is the percent of students that are meeting the standard, the minimum standard, or exceeding, not the actual scores. We do report average scores, mean scores, but how far below a student is doesn't impact that percent being exceeded.
Doesn't pull it way down.
No, it doesn't. It does pull the average score down, but what the state reports, what you've seen is the percent they're meeting. And how low they are below meeting doesn't impact that. And then, yes.
¿Qué confianza vamos a tener los padres ahora que vuelvan a hacer el examen, los niños o los maestros?
There's gonna be next time that the kids take the test, there's gonna be doubt. We're not sure if that data will be legitimate next year. So there is a doubt next year that the kids take the test.
And I think some of what Antonio will cover in here will help address that. Because there are ways to encourage students and make sure that they feel comfortable and prepared for tests. In the yellow and then.
Oh, I was just wondering in the math area, math tests, whether everybody knows it or not, that it passed, they either have the test ready to them for the math. Is that still?
Math read aloud by a human person is still allowed. ODE, the Department of Education, has introduced a computer read aloud also, so that a student can just click on a little speaker icon and have the computer read it to them. That's also allowed. And that's always been the case. At the beginning of this year, the computer read aloud is considered a resource, which means any student can access it when they want. In the past, the read aloud has been an accommodation, which means all students have access to it, but they have to know about it ahead of time and have asked for it ahead of time. or have the teacher approve it. And one more question.
Con todo respeto, nos interesa que nos explique lo que dice el papel, pero también tenemos muchas dudas los padres y creo que no es el tiempo suficiente. Nos van a dejar mal.
So, she would like for us to explain what's on the paper, but she also feels that there is not enough time in 1 hour to really deal with this. So, regresamos, si quieren hacemos otra junta y la hacemos por un tiempo más largo. So,
Yo pienso como padre que mientras ustedes no digan claramente lo que está pasando, siempre nos vamos a quedar con dudas.
So we can come back and do a meeting for 2 hours or 2.5, and we'll be here as long as you want. We set it up for 1 hour, but we're more than happy to come back. We're more than happy to come back next week or twice next week. You let us know. Okay? So,
I'm sorry, let me interrupt. I know a lot of good questions, and I think they're excellent questions, and I thank you so much because they make me thoughtful, and I really appreciate that. You want to know what we're going to do this year, and that's something that we can share in another meeting, and I think while we have the district people here, you can ask some of the questions that I might not be able to answer, because I would love to talk to you about the math coaches that we're going to bring in. I would love to talk to you about how the Turnaround Arts Grant is not affected at all, and they're very encouraging and optimistic about our progress. I want to talk to you about the data teams that we've built with my incredible, amazing, committed staff, where we're going to be looking at data all the time, and they're going to be talking to parents about the data. And I want to talk to you about the coaching that we're going to do with the kids so that when they walk into that test environment, they're not scared and they're ready for it. So I'm happy to talk to you about that, but I think while we have them here, let's use them for the questions that I can't answer because I don't know and I wasn't here. And then you guys use me for what we're going to do to get all of our kids to achieve at the high rate that I know they can, because I've been in their classrooms every day. Your kids are amazing. Absolutely, positively amazing and brilliant, and they can achieve. And that's my job and your job, and we're going to do that together. So let's do that with the district.
all right, so I like that.
Yo quiero una sugerencia más para ustedes. Aquí nos entregan una hoja con información. Nos vienen y nos hacen cuestiones a nosotros que están haciendo un flyer allá. El Señor nos está dando otra información, nos están mezclando, nos están confundiendo. Necesitamos cosas por paso.
Okay,
Explíquenos todo lo que está diciendo él y estaría bueno que nos hicieran en 2 idiomas, en formas separadas, porque aquí nos estamos perdiendo. De por sí no entendemos lo que es la boleta de calificaciones. Ahora lo que él trae, ¿cómo vamos a ayudar a nuestros hijos?
So what you say is to have a separate meetings in separate languages, because this is complex. What he's talking about, what Joe was talking about, that state assessment is complex, and right now they're confused. She's confused because, so she would like probably a meeting in Spanish so we can go over and explain it. So she said, I'm kind of confused because it's different things than how I can understand. So we're going to start with this, because from this we will give you an idea. So let's start with the front page. In the spring of 2012, when we look at the data, the results, we see a dramatic increase in student data. In December of 2012, we received a complaint by a former employee that came to us, which led to the investigation. As soon as the complaint came to us, we informed the state. By law, we have to inform the state, and the state says, do your investigation. We did the investigation. There were 2 people that did the investigation. The assistant director of human resources and myself. We interviewed a lot of people. And we interviewed test coordinators, we interviewed the teachers, we interviewed the principal, and we interviewed other people. What the investigation determined was that the school approached testing differently from 1 year to the next in order to create the best possible environment for students to then demonstrate what they know. Staff who administer the test follow state guidelines. Yet, given that the investigation could occur a year after the testing, the investigation was deemed inconclusive. The school district implemented added testing guidelines for staff and monitored for the spring of 2012 testing, verifying the proper practices were followed. The part that I want to say with the investigation, there was no evidence of any wrongdoing. So if people are looking for somebody to blame, there is nobody to blame. This is what happened, and I'm going to go over what's the difference between 2012 and 2013. And hopefully that gives you an idea of what happened, what was the difference. I want to add, you have some amazing teachers that are very dedicated to your kids. And when we interviewed them, they were honest with us, and they were also hurt. Okay? Because it's assuming something that didn't happen. So I want to go over the difference of the 2 years. So I want to make that clear. I did the investigation, and I'm ready to stand up to anybody to say we did not find anybody to blame. So if we're looking for somebody to blame, there is nobody. There is nobody that did something wrong that we investigated. Okay, so let's go over what was different from 2012 to 2013.
How many people are involved in the investigation?
Two people.
Okay. Could you say the name of the other?
Let me go over that. Let me go over the...
Could you just say the name of the other person so we could have record?
Yes, Michelle Riddell.
Okay.
And myself. In 2012, when we saw this big increase, students were permitted to read test questions quietly, aloud to themselves or with a testing staff member. The students were permitted to vocalize their thoughts, the thought process on a question aloud to themselves or to a staff member. During math testing, staff members read questions aloud to students when asked to. Remember, all these are permissible. These are okay under the state guidelines. Students were given breaks and could do activities in the gymnasium. They could play games or have a snack when they needed a break. Many staff members were present in the testing environment, in the lab, to support students. State guidelines permitted students to take that test 3 times in order to pass. So if I didn't pass it one time, I can take it a second time. Or if I pass it and I could do better, from meeting to exceeding, then, you know what, let's take it. Let's see if we can get you to exceeding. And kids really wanted to take tests when they saw, hey, you know what, a meeting I can get to exceed. We reduced it to 2 times, and Joe talked about that. Math instruction, a math specialist was here in the spring of 2012 to focus instruction between the first and second and third round of testing to help students learn material. So we had somebody that specialized in helping if the kid did not pass the first time to work with that kid. In the area that they needed work, so they could take it a second time and see if they will pass. Reading instruction, a reading teacher worked intensively with struggling readers. Okay? This was 2012. And as you can see, this created a self-nurturing, supported environment for kids. And this is what we want our kids to be. We want them to be in that environment where, you know what, they believe that they can do it. And we can say, you know what, yes, you can do it. You know what? And I'm going to be over there with you. After the investigation, that changed. Because with the investigation, then, this is what happened. The students could not read questions aloud.
Mr. Lopez, sorry, before we go to 2013, was 2011 the same as 2012?
Yes.
In terms of the?
Yes. I think I was in here at that time.
But roughly the same.
But roughly the same.
I didn't mean to open up
No.
questions.
So let me finish her and then I will get you questions. Okay?
Kim Patterson changed it enormously from 11 to 12.
Okay. So there's your answer. But the principal changed it really from 11 to 12. Was it for the better?
I mean, 3 or 4 times the number of assistants in the test area. And encouraging the kids to ask for reading and encourage them to keep at it. And grades, all these things were new in 12.
Thank you for sharing that. So he's reinforcing what I just read. So in 2013, after the investigation, this is what changed. The students could not read questions aloud. The room had to be silent. A change in the school district guidelines to the school from previous years. Staff members only read aloud questions to students whose teachers requested or whose individualized education plan required. So if a kid is saying, you know, can I read this aloud? No, unless it was requested before. Staff did not initiate breaks for students. The students could ask for a break if needed. Staff review computer tools such as highlighting or strike-through in advance of the test. Staff did not repeat the directions or encourage using tools during the test. Whereas the year before, you can tell the student, you know, there are some tools over there that you can use. In 2013, you will not say that to the student because we were afraid that we might be doing something wrong, or the teacher were afraid that we might do something wrong. State guidelines changed and the students could only take 2 times. We went over that. Math instruction. King no longer had a math specialist to support students and changed in the math teaching to help the students with causing uneven instruction. Reading instruction. The experienced language teacher went on a leave and was replaced by a temporary staff impacting instruction. In addition, the school no longer had a reading support teacher to work intensively with struggling readers. Students change. We had some students because the Jefferson enrollment balancing that came and they were new. And this being a small school, we just put in that you know you got some new students. So what are we doing in moving forward? These are not the conditions. Let me finish with this and then I will go. I'm almost done. These are not the conditions that are conducive for kids to feel empowered, that they can do. Okay. Well, this is what we're going to do in 2014 because we have to monitor this. want to make sure that teachers continue to give kids the best instruction and create the environment and the support systems that they need. The relationship of the student and the teacher is huge. A level of trust and relationship. Teachers here and I being here, and this is an amazing school. And not because our teachers are here present, but teachers have done some amazing work. We will continue to work with that. We will look at the data and find out which are the students that we need to do a better job in supporting them. We will make sure that we have teaming up with the state and district staff to give clear and thoughtful guidance on testing practices to make sure, again, what we did during the test last year is that we sent somebody from the district to drop and announce. Just to make sure that things were followed. The other is that principal and I, we're going to be here monitoring this year. And as a support. Like I say, in the investigation, we didn't find anybody doing anything wrong. These are the conditions. When somebody make a complaint, it changed the whole thing. Because now, you've been accused of you doing something, so you're going to be afraid what you will do. And that's why it created this environment that was sterile, where some of the staff was scared that I might be doing something wrong. And this is not what King is about. And this is not what we're about. This is one assessment. This is one assessment. And the teachers can tell you that this is not the assessment. There are other assessments that we have that are better assessment in terms of finding out what is it that the kids are getting successful, where they need support. Okay, so any questions about this?
Tony.
Let's start with you, but you haven't had a question.
Yeah, just to be clear about what changed between 2012 and 2013 when the more sterile testing environment was implemented. Was that because of the district guidelines changing? You know, the things like staff not initiating breaks and that sort of thing? Or was that just based upon fear of not messing up?
Fear, because it's like...
If nothing had been done incorrectly, then why did things change?
Because we were investigating.
Well, but if nothing was...
No, I mean, I was thinking last night about this meeting, how to best explain it. It's like when somebody
So were the guidelines also just changed for King because of the investigation? No. Or were they changed system-wide?
These are the same guidelines. In 2012, they created this environment that, a safe, nurturing environment for kids where, what, we're going to do well and, because of the investigation, because now all of a sudden you find yourself under investigation. So it's like when somebody, blames you for something and you like, I didn't do anything wrong. Your behavior is going to change. You're going to be afraid of. So the teachers were afraid.
So the changes were implemented by the staff,
Antonio, I think I can add to that. So my name is Erin Barnett, I'm in the communications office, and I helped to write this handout. I'm also a parent of a third grader who will take the test for the first time this year, so I see this from a parent point of view as well as kind of a little bit trying to communicate clearly. I think what you had is I talked at length with the teachers who did the coordinating in order to help write this handout, right, because that's part of my job. And I think what happened is you have a combination of things going on. One is what you might call a chilling effect that happens when you are personally being investigated because there's a complaint. So you're like, oh, whoa, oh my God, you know, you're kind of reining yourself in. There's some of that going on. There also were some changes in the guidelines. So for example, this piece about being able to hear, read aloud to a student. You are allowed to read aloud to a student in a certain situation, but the guidance that our folks, that Joe's staff was giving the second year, in 2013, was nuanced enough that the staff was perceiving we no longer can accommodate kids having it read out loud. So that, and they're like in this mode of, I've got to be really careful, I've got to do everything to the letter, and because I don't want to get in trouble. So they're having a very conservative interpretation of what they can do. And so there's all these kind of factors are going on that lead to what you would call, I think, a sterile testing environment. And one of the teachers basically said to me, and this is heartbreaking, that, you know, so here is this incredibly nurturing male teacher at your school who I was just so happy to have my son have. And he helped with the test in 2012. It was like, let's, you know, do whatever we can within the guidelines to create this great environment. And now, oh no, you got in trouble. Oh no. And he had to literally stand and as kids were going through the math test and just basically giving up, just, you know, filling out the test, I'm done, forget it. And him not feeling able that he could say, okay, I mean, are you sure you're finished? Are you really sure? You know, it was an environment that was much more kind of hands-off. And for some kids, they gave up. And did that measure their work? Absolutely not. Did it mean they couldn't do math? No, it did not mean that. But that's what came out of the test. So that's the kind of the nuance that we're trying to explain that is, you know, it's not a cut and dry thing. So I don't know if that helps for me in words. But
So let's go, somebody has to ask a question, yes? Do you have it?
So, this is my third year working at King, and I'm aware of how great our teachers are, and I'm aware of how this can make people nervous if they're under investigation and being watched closely. I'm wondering what was done at the district level to support our teachers in knowing that they can still have that relationship with the kids during testing and helping them while still following the guidelines. How were they supported in this process and knowing that they're being investigated when they know they're doing their jobs well?
But you know that they're doing their jobs well, which is what you said.
So not every teacher knew that there was the investigation. Not everybody knew. There were the people that knew were the people that we talked. Those are the ones. And we couldn't say we have an investigation.
Yeah.
Because it will in any way interfere with us conducting the investigation.
But you asked a really good question, and I think that's a good point. And this is why this is so valuable to us. So, one, what can we do to help the King staff feel empowered and supported to continue to be nurturing, which we all know our kids need. And I think that's something that we're going to be very focused on. The other thing that I'll speak to with communications, it sounds like it would be helpful for people as follow-up to, and we don't make it district-wide practice of sending these scores out. You will get a grade card soon in the mail about your school that's related to these assessments, but it's not these numbers. Sounds like everybody would like to see the very specific numbers coming to you from your school and district. We can do that and do better at that communications and plan that grades.
Do you have a question?
Before I ask this question, I want to throw out a kudos to King teachers. Many of whom are really good. My son has had the best experience in his learning and not being in King teachers. So I have two questions for you. One is, it would help tremendously if the Oregon Department of Education specialists who counsel the teachers to coach kids through tests in the way that was described in 2011-2012 was here to give information. Okay, I would like to hear from her. One, but before that, there's a second piece of this that I think is so key. Clearly, you wholeheartedly believe that no wrongdoing was done. Then why not give I think that you give this sense of impropriety, even if none took place. Why not invite OEE to come in and actually do an investigation to get someone outside of the district? I see no reason why it has to be a PPS insider who's been in the district for how many years now?
10
I've worked a decade of my job. I'm also a teacher. I'm very invested in my school, and I'm sure you're very invested in PPS. And I'm not saying that you're wrong. You might be totally right. Why not have that confirmed by outsiders so we can clear the name of King, exonerate these teachers? I want that. And if there was anybody involved in any wrongdoing, then it can be found out, but in a way that seems honest.
Well, it is who are following the state procedures, and we investigate it, and this is what we come up with.
Have you asked OEE to come in and do an investigation?
They're here.
But that doesn't answer the question.
As long as you guys want. I'm here.
No.
All night.
I'm going to ask you things that make- okay, my name is Pat Baker, and I work as a consultant. I'm not an ODE employee. I worked through Education Northwest. About 3 years ago, the Oregon Department of Ed put coaches in schools that were priority or focus schools, and we worked with the principal and assistant principals and teachers on testing and on building learning communities and using data. And I'm a retired teacher and a retired principal. Now, when I came to King because King was a SIG school. And when I came to King, this will be my 3rd year at King. So Lisa was new, Ms. Collins was new in, I gotta get my years right, in spring of 2012. So, and she was doing the testing. So I said, well, this is a good way I can help. So we pulled all the testing manuals together, we looked at the accommodations, and I want to comment on Mr. Anderson. I really appreciated his comment about relationships. I think that kids learn because we build relationships with them. And testing is a place where you have to have relationships also. And so I said, let's look at these accommodations. How can we help kids the best? If we say to a child, if you have like 20 fifth graders in a room, you say to those fifth graders, if you think I can help you by listening to you read aloud, raise your hand and let me know. Nobody's going to say that. No kid's going to raise their hand. You have to say to them, I'm going to sit here and listen to you read aloud. You have to walk around, and parents, you know that from doing homework at home. You can't say do your homework and walk away. If you don't check on it a couple times, it's going to be done and it's going to be gone. But if you can walk around and say to them, did you check your answers? That was an accommodation. That was an okay thing to do. These teachers at King worked hard. When those kids came into the testing, they knew how to highlight. They knew what to do. There is absolutely, well, let me go back to another comment. Look at yourselves. When you are reading maybe you're looking at your bank statement, or you're signing mortgage papers, or you're doing your income tax, do you ever read it out loud so that it makes more sense to you? Yes, I do that. If I have something hard to read, if I read it out loud and I hear myself read it, it makes a lot more sense. So that's what you want to teach kids to do. And that's what we let them do on those tests. And when they walked out, they got hand slaps. They got good job. We're proud of you. We don't know how they did, but we let them do that. And that was important. Then there was an investigation because a staff member made a complaint. Tell us more about that. Okay, I can tell you a little bit about it. Because that complaint came quite late. You know, you have to remember we tested in spring of 2012. So it must have been about December or January of 2013.
Yeah, December.
Yeah, December 2012, January 2013, where all of a sudden a letter came and a couple of us were called in to talk about testing. Well, you know, a lot has gone on since February and March to December. We shared what we did. And the other thing I want to say is, these are computer tests. There's no way we can change the scores. Once that child puts in the score, the answer, that's that. So a lot has been said about, you know, changing scores and things like that. That's an impossible thing to do. It wasn't like you have pencil paper that we read in other newspapers when people do grades. That's not possible. And this was a hard-working staff that found great ways to encourage them, who teachers sat and they talked about different learning styles. And so you brought in, if kids needed a lot of reading, you had all them in together. You know, if I'm taking attention.
I hate to interrupt, but Karen had to leave, our daycare person. I will actually go back there. Your kids are all back there. I will go watch them for a few minutes, and then I will stay as long as you want.
So we're
Karen
gonna
had to leave, but I'm going to watch your children.
We're gonna do another meeting next week. Next week, and we're gonna make it for 2 hours. And we're gonna do one in Spanish. And we're gonna do one in English. Would that work? Yeah?
Same time or different times?
Well, I'm gonna set it up with the principal in terms, because we need to get child care and we need to get the translators. So do you want another meeting? Yeah, so we can talk more about it. So let's plan it for next week. I'm gonna meet with Aaron so we can start getting the letter out and finding out like child care, and so expect something from us about these meetings.
Can I have a request for the meeting? Can you bring more information? Like here it says that students came to King due to Jefferson enrollment balancing. And I'm wondering what changes those were since our boundary hasn't changed, things like that. Can you bring those statistics to us?
Yeah, we can get.
See, we had some kids from Humboldt came here.
Well, we were one of those families, and I didn't see that many come over. From my perspective, I didn't see that many come. That's why I was wondering if we could get that.
We can bring so many kids came from Humboldt or what was that? We can bring some data.
Can I add one?
Yes.
One more request?
Yes.
Can you bring us maybe something that we can hold on to that has some sort of an action plan? Do you have an action plan?
Like that.
I'm sorry.
So what we have in terms of monitoring, she's gonna tell me what we're gonna do.
Right.
What she was
But I
talking
mean,
about.
just the reaction of the district when you saw the drastic change, and, you know, I mean, definitely your reaction, and you must have some sort of an idea if that's common. For that to happen, for numbers to be so different from one year just to the next, and if it's common, I guess we should have some things in place. And if it's not common, then maybe what I guess you think about.
This is the first one that I'm personally involved in this. So I don't have any prior experience here or in California.
With investigations?
With the investigation or somebody putting a complaint.
No experience with that?
I have never had in California.
What about the drastic numbers? Is that something that you think before?
We have seen some from 1 year to other. When it goes up, they will say what contributed to this. What are you doing in that school? Because if we see a school that goes up, we want to know what they're doing, that we can say, hey, you know what, this makes a lot of sense, other schools can learn. If it goes down, like, what happened here? So it is just that kind of finding out what happened. And remember that kids take the test, there is a window that closes in May, and we don't get the results until much later. So there is a delay when we get the data. But yeah, we can have that. Anything else?
Yeah. Who put this together?
We have Aaron.
Well, I just want to say thank you for putting this together. And I don't know, there's still so many questions that we have. But if we could have had this a week ago or 2 weeks ago, it would have cleared up so much anxiety. These people love King School, these love King School. And when you have people who love King School and question the integrity of what's happening, that's a sad day. We love this. We don't want to have to do that. So this really made such a huge difference. There's still questions, and all that. We can handle that. We can handle getting through some of these questions. We can't handle everything good.
And I can share with you in the next meeting what was the thinking behind. because we thought in the open house that it just happened last week. But also we were looking like, this is the beginning of the school year, the kids will know.
Parents are freaking out.
I know, but what I'm saying is that I can tell you what the thinking was behind it, I can tell you it was not because we didn't want you to know. We were thinking about maybe correctly or incorrectly, but it was our best intention to, start the school building community.
But why did the newspaper know before we did?
Parents, even if we don't know all the answers, it helps. Even if we don't know everything, but we can share with them.
Yeah, that was really weird. That's one process for students.
That's perfectly understandable and fair.
If the newspaper knows before we know,
Tracy says hand like.
if the newspaper knows before we know, that's wrong. And that's where the whole big thing is. The newspaper put it out before we did, and that's wrong.
I'm getting confused by the various ways this is being portrayed. Were the testing rules from the state changed at the state between 1 year and the other, or was just the interpretation of the rules?
Both things, would be my understanding, you can correct me, both, so there's a little of both. So for instance, state testing rules said no longer 3 times, you can only take it 2. That was a very big change that had been passed. But then you had interpretations that became more conservative. That was right, and the complexity of this is this whole thing about whether you can read stuff aloud. Technically, because you're supposed to have quiet, if you're going to read something aloud to a kid, you would have to take them alone to an isolated room and read it aloud, usually in a silent texting area. So whereas in 2012, they said, well, it's okay, we'll just be quiet, we'll do it. In 2013, they're like, oh no, we'd have to take a kid into a separate room. We don't have enough staff to take a kid who wants us to read into a separate room. We're just not going to read. So that was a conservative interpretation. So that's an example of both this rule that changed and an interpretation that changed.
My other question is, when the judge said that we can track the trends by individual students, can we get some sort of data of how far the score changed directly to the fact that it was turned into a population
We can give you overall data. We cannot give you
We have a couple reports posted already, and I'll let Erin know where they are, so she can pass them on to how to get to it. It's just on the PPS webpage, but, and then we can look into
Well, the procedures are standardized by the state.
Well, they weren't standardized between one year and the next.
It was not, it was in some of those, it was in the education.
Yeah, so you're going to use that as an interpretation.
Right, and there really obviously needs to be some clarity with all of our schools, right? I want to make sure I know what I'm doing here.
Can I just address that really quick? The state does require that we train all test coordinators in the school and all test administrators. We use a testing training presentation from the state to do that so that it is standardized. Everybody gets the same message. Everybody sees that. To Aaron's point, another example of the interpretation is breaks. Normally, students would say, can I have a break? Or they might have a kind of a glazed look, and that would prompt the test coordinator to say, do you need a break? The interpretation in this case in 2012 was for teachers to more proactively say, do you need a break? There's nothing wrong with that, particularly if students look like they're getting restless. But the pullback in 2013 was to not offer that to students anymore once they asked. No.
It was more, that becomes that interpretation that, oh boy, we better be really conservative about the way we're handling this. So. Well, it's the people who are actually having to give the test because of the sort of sense that it's showing the fact that you personally have been under investigation.
I'll have to say, I don't speak up here, that is not true. What I want to say is I was told that the testing environment had to be quiet, that there would be no talking. I called the district office, no talking whatsoever,
no talking. So that means if a kid is reading too loud to themselves, they had to move. And this example I was given, 4 kids in a room, maybe one with an adult. That you are not to talk to them, you are to read the directions that were provided outside of the testing area, and when they finish, you read the directions when they're finished. No other talking to students. That's the direction.
So that was the example I was trying to
That's not a real change.
That was the district interpretation after the previously, there was talking in the room. Students were talking.
Dude, he's talking.
If we were to say we have, remember that at that time we were still conducting the investigation. We couldn't say, hey, this because this is happening at King or something. We couldn't. Well, it was very, yeah. Not everybody knew. They know now. Some teachers, they just find out like a couple of weeks ago when we came on the newspaper. That's how they find out.
Bring the kids.
Are you the person that wrote the article?
So were there consistent drops in the DIBELs and what's the others? ECCVMs?
The teachers, they just finished giving the DIBELs.
No, for the same years, were there drops in those scores as well?
We can find out. We can find out.
You didn't look at that to see if...
I don't have that data on my hand right now. We can look. The DIBELs is K second, and ECCVM is third and red line.
Are there any other assessments that show a drop? That's a good question. They can eliminate the ambiguity of one hand.
All right?
Once the investigation happens, guidelines change, school,
Well, King, he was under investigation. The other schools did not know, and I think the majority of the teachers here did not even know that that investigation was happening.
Okay, so at the moment of investigation, and the guidelines change in school, my question is, how are the teachers supported in terms of being able to prepare the kids for the change that was now going to be applied to the test? Because you said earlier, some teachers didn't know, some teachers didn't, so it was a big secret, whatever. How are our teachers prepared to give the kids the test? It almost sounds like some of them were set to fail to begin with, because they weren't told about the investigation and prepared for it. So my problem, and some of the statement, is that type of mentality, my personal concern, is what happens at King all the time when it comes to PPS. And that's why there's no trust in PPS, is because when it comes to this school, there's a cloud of secrecy, there's a cloud of, okay, we're not going to do this, we're not going to do that, and then this is what happens. So like this, so you earlier said there's nobody to blame, but listening to this is like, okay, well, our teacher.
No, from here. I mean, from here, nobody.
No, I'm not saying our teacher did anything, but PPS themselves, it sounds like they didn't prepare because they want to keep everything a secret, and that's my problem with PPS.
Well, that was part of the investigation had to be confidential.
Right, but I think the point you're making that I think is will be definitely taken back is what could be done to support the teachers going forward so they didn't feel this level of chilling effect. And we're in this weird place where we've had a complaint for what we have to investigate to do that. So we're in that kind of, we've got to investigate place, but is there also a support that we could have been bringing to our staff so that they didn't feel the need to go to such a conservative interpretation? And I think we're all saying there might have been something we could have been doing there. And I think we get into that role of where we're oversight, we have to regulate, we have to investigate, and then we're not coming around and saying, what is that human piece that we could have done better? And that's, I think, where
No, and
we'll be looking at.
that's exactly my point.
Yeah.
But it also further leads to why people trust you. That's why you don't have parents that want to come to you. Because that is just how the constant, years over years over years, is what keeps happening here.
That's a
You know, whether it's this situation, whether it's another situation, it's a constant thing. It's like PPS has no investment sometimes because in King School or in the community itself.
Thanks for saying
So
that.
that's, you know, and I, like I said, I hear what you're going to say, but
That's an important truth. Thank you for speaking.
There are a lot of things that we're gonna learn from this. Because like I say, you know, in 10 years that I've been here, I have never been to experience like this, or in California. So there's gonna be some learning.
And you're helping us learn that kind of an insight that makes us think, oh, this is how it's looking on the ground. It's really valuable. So, yeah, and that helps to hold us accountable. So thank you for that. Thank you for that. So, go ahead. I know I'm supposed to be in another school meeting like this. Go ahead.
Well, I'd like to recap a little bit about what I heard, because all last year I was with.
We can give the gentleman.
I was with Kim Patterson, and I was enormously happy about the time in 2012 where she decided to do this very helpful kind of testing system. And we got such good scores out of it. And then as Lisa said, in 2013, someone at the district, whoever it was, said, absolute silence. We can't use that supported kind of testing anymore, period. And that's what Kim Patterson told us there at Site Council, that she's going to have to completely change the testing system. There can only be one person there to monitor, and that person can't say anything, period. So we have a situation where I think the entire results of of our getting a bad report, of getting such a bad Oaks test, is because we weren't allowed to do the good system that we had in 12, and this had a very negative effect on the students too, when they suddenly found they got no more support.
Thank you.
Jim.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. And again, I'm taking several things to heart in my role that I wish we had created this handout sooner, communicated sooner. I'm hearing that if we ever end up in these types of situations at any of our schools, then the sooner the better, particularly in the age of immediate communication, like what more could we have done? And I'm really thinking about that tonight. And we just really appreciate the time that the teachers who stayed late to be here and all of the parents. It's what makes a strong school, and we are very proud of King School and looking forward to a good year and trying to move forward in a constructive manner for our students. So thank you very much.